Hello, today I'm going to be showing the assembly of an electric eel wheel like this one here. It's specifically, there's a couple of different versions of this, and we're talking about the first one with a magnetic cover like that. This video will probably be targeted mostly at the small number of assemblers that I have doing this, but anybody interested in seeing how an electric eel wheel is made will find this interesting. So let's get started. So normally a person would probably assemble a bunch of these electric eel wheels all at the same time, and you do these glue steps in big batches. But because I'm only doing one, I'll just show you doing one. So because there's varnish on the pieces of wood, you want to sand them. Probably a little better than I'm actually doing here, but it's just going to be a demo unit. So then you'd wipe these off a little bit. And this piece here are for motors. I'll be showing where these pieces go in a little bit. And the glue I like using is a 2-part epoxy. I've already pre-mixed it. Let's see. So I'm taking some, you'd want to wipe these off, but like you'd do a big batch of these. So I'm just kind of doing this for demonstration purposes. But here's a motor, and I've got jigs like this that basically help with the spacing. So the first piece will go on, and then you'd put some epoxy on. Make sure it's nice around the motor shaft. Then you put a smaller circle on. Then you put a little more epoxy on, again focusing around the motor shaft. You put this on, and then I slide the jig in, and I push it up nice and tight, and that'll make sure it stays flat. So you sort of set this off to the side like that. The next piece that requires a little bit of glue is one of these pieces, and we've got them already here. Generally what you do is you put this through, and again, it's most important to get the glue nice around the core of the nut, or I guess that's a bolt, because that's the piece that you're going to be trying to prevent from spinning. This isn't strictly necessary, you'll see later, but it makes it a little easier for the end user to tighten this tension band. So we do it this way. Okay, so this piece you then set aside, and let's see. Okay, so that's mostly it for the glue. There's a little bit more glue necessary later, but now we'll get on to assembling one of the flyers. So there's 3 circles you need, and one of them is a little smaller than the other 2. And that one, the smaller one, should go in the middle. So I'll have a smaller one. Yeah, here's a smaller one. Okay, so now I've got 2 big ones and a small one. Now I just slide this on, and then there's these electric bolts, and I usually just put one through to kind of keep everything aligned while I'm sliding things together like this. There. And then there's these acorn nuts over here. And initially I'm just going to, do these hand tight. There's not really a point to tightening them up. It's better to tighten them up after you have the slide bars on, which is the very next step. So I'm just doing those hand tight so that these holes can be adjusted a little bit as we put these through. Now there's washers for these screws. Put them in like that. Then you also want washers on the other side. Okay, now there's these slide bars, and there's actually, I got them mixed up. There's two types of hooks. There's ones with little notches, ones without notches. Here's two without notches. So you'll have one on each side, and basically the ones with notches, now I'm forgetting, I think, yeah, those are a little bit tighter. So the ones without notches will go on first because they'll slide a little looser. And then the ones without notches go on second. You want to make sure the hook's facing in the same direction because these aren't supposed to move very much, so they're made a little bit tighter. And then to align them, I usually get one of these little bars, which we'll use, wooden blocks that we're going to use in a later step. And that gets this one, which doesn't move much, sort of in a good spot, and this one will move a lot. So now we've got one of them done, and again, it's the one without the notch that goes on first, and you want to have these be mirror images or they're not going to work correctly in the next step. So whoops, that was not a mirror image. There we go. So now this one's a mirror image, and then I put this guy on. And I'll use this little block to get the alignment right. Okay. Now, there's this hole in the, so this is a spindle. There's a hole in it, and you want the hooks, the opening in the hooks facing away from the hole. So this will do it. And this will do it. So if you didn't get them mirrored, then you wouldn't be able to have them both facing away like that. Now I use a drill and I tighten it. So you want it snug, but not like overly tight, because I'm going to, there. I'm going to twist them. So you don't want them so tight you can't twist them, but you want them tight enough that they don't twist easily. So these twist pretty hard, and you want to get them nice and perpendicular to the hole like that, and the hole, all the hooks are facing away. Okay, so the flyer assembly is now pretty much done. I'll throw a bobbin on for later, and this piece is kind of ready to go. So now we're going to move on to building the case, and I usually do that by getting all the different pieces I'm going to need. So here's the front. That'll go on that side. Here's the back. That's going to go like that. Then the two sides are identical. So what I generally do is I take a side, and this hole goes back here. Now it won't actually assemble if you do it wrong, so it's not too big of a deal. If you get this backwards at this stage, like here, I'll show you. If I get it wrong, now there's a overhang here, and it's not going to assemble, and the next piece won't actually fit on. So if you get a piece wrong, it's not a big deal, but because it'll self-correct itself. And again, the front piece will only fit on this front piece because the spacing of the tabs. But okay, so what you want to do to get this piece on is you just want to get those probably 2 pieces over there. And then you, yeah, sort of work your way around. That's the ticket. Now the front piece is on, and then the back piece. Let's do it the same way where we kind of work our way around. Okay, and it's all tight enough that it will hold itself together at this point. So you don't have to worry about falling apart. And now we're going to use these 4 blocks in these 4 corners. But before I put them in, there's these thumbtacks, and these are going to be used with the magnets later on. So you just center these thumbtacks in the middle of these posts, and you push them in like that. We need to do 4 of these. And now we've got 4 of them. Okay, and now we're going to put them in the corner like that. So I'm just switching the drill bit on my drill right now. And there's these 1/2" number 4 screws. And I'll just oh, it fell through the bottom. Yeah, if it's not apparent, this is just the second one I'm assembling, so this is something you'll get much better at. This will work way better as you assemble more of them. So you want to make sure you're holding that wooden block both in and up against the top there. Not holding it at a good angle. Okay, and we'll get the other ones in on the side here. You want to get the screws just flush with the surface of the wood. And we're doing just the 4 end screws to start with, but there's a total of 12 screws that are going to be going in here. So you got those 4, and then you've got the side ones. And once the blocks are held in place, everything's a little easier. So that's 6 of the screws. We've got 6 more to go. And you want to make sure everything is staying nice and square during this process. Again, you're just getting the screws flush with the top, and then the last screws will go in these 4 holes at the top. You want a nice variable speed drill. Whoops. The advantage of a variable speed drill, I mean, it's pretty much a requirement, because without it you couldn't really have any control over the screws and getting them flush with the wooden case. So that all looks good, and there's a bottom piece here. You can use that to just make sure everything's square. And yeah, this one looks pretty good. It should sit nice and flat. Like that. Okay, so then the next step will be putting in the electronics. So there's this little microcontroller that'll have a dot on one side, and you'll match that up with the little bump in the socket there. That's the only part of the circuit board that needs assembling. And then you need to get some spacers and 4 of these screws, and the spacers get installed like this. You want to make sure those are nice and tight. Okay, let's see. Then you grab these wire assemblies, and there's a little red and black written next to the screen terminal, and you put the properly colored wires into each slot, and you tighten the screws. Again, when you're doing a lot of these, you'll do these things in groups, probably. Do big batches of things, which will reduce the assembly time. So you get that. Then there's also here it is. Okay, so then there's some visible parts of the wire through the bottom of this, and the other side there's not. So you want to take the part where you can see the silver pieces and put those towards the center of the dial here, and then on this one you take the part where you can see the silver things and you face that one down, and that just ensures that the direction is going to be correct when you adjust the dial. If you get one of those reversed, nothing will be damaged. It's just something you'll have to switch later. Okay, so then at this point, most of the things are connected. So let's install the circuit board into the case. So again, it only goes in one way. Get these screws pretty tight, but you don't want to sink them into the wood too much. So that's good. And there's a little nut for this side that you want to get about as tight as you can with your fingers. So next there's this little pad that you put on the bottom of the motor. You just sort of center that between those portions. Then now the motor's not going to be dry yet. The glue takes a while to dry, but I've got another one here that's already dry, so I'm going to use that. And then there's these black O-rings. Okay, back now. So at this point, we're going to install the O-ring. So the way this works is you loop it through one side with your hand. And it's kind of hard to do on camera because I can't reach my head over, but get it like that. Then you can kind of get it where you want. Needle nose is a good way to sort of pull it through. And then you just sort of adjust those, kind of get it centered the way you want. And then there's a red dot in the back of the motor, and the red wire should go to that terminal, and the black wire goes to the other one. Like that. And then this guy goes through this hole, and it's actually will click into place when you get him. Oh, I have them upside down. That's the problem. Okay. And then there's a little nut that goes on like this. That nice and snug with the pliers, or you could use a socket. And this guy is looking pretty complete. We got to put on the end caps. So this is going to be the front, and the thinner end cap goes on the front. The other one goes on the back, and it's got some pockets only on one side. Those will face forward as well. Okay, now we'll move to this bottom portion. So on one side, you're going to install a bunch of these clear rubber pads. This is what the electric eel wheel will sit on. And there's these. Oh, so now I've got magnets, and I'm just going to stick them in, and then if I slide them off to the side, one magnet stays in. It's flush. So like that. Now I've got 4 magnets on there. And then I'm going to use these clear little circles to hold them in from the other side. And I mean, yeah, I'm kind of rushing on this one just to keep the video short. This will just be a demo unit, but normally things would be well aligned there. Let's see. And then you can see how this will fit in there. So now the rubber feet will be facing outward, and this will snap in on place there, and it'll rest right there, nice and flat. Let's see. So it's a little easier to install the belt without that on. So the next step is we're going to, well, actually, whoops, I forgot one step here. There's magnets in here to hold a orifice hook. So the way those will go, so this is the only other place that a little glue is used. And I think, I haven't figured out the best way to do this, but I think if you just dip that in there a little bit and then put it in the hole there. Yeah, that worked pretty well. You got to be careful not to get glue on the case, or you can wipe it off with a rag, but these are actually a little snugger. No, that one went all the way in, but if they don't go in all the way, I got a trick I'll show you a little bit. Oops. And we get a little on the bottom again. And okay, so 2 of them went in on all the way easily, and 2 of them didn't. But if you just get something hard like the back of a screwdriver, you can easily push them in all the way. Get a little rag, just a little piece of one. Get any glue off there. Okay. So now we're going to install the belt, the flyer. And the last piece, so again, this isn't dry, but I have one that I've assembled. Oh, there's some elastic band. I just tie a knot and cut off the excess with a scissors. And then usually I do these for, by default, I set them up for right-handed people. So you want the screw on the right-hand side. So you'll stick it through. This has become a little unraveled, so I'm just going to snip off the end with the scissors. And then I should be able to stick it through. So we'll then if you just tie a knot, in the end it won't fit through the hole anymore. Like that. And then I'm going to push this through here. And then there's these lock nuts with a flange. I'm going to install those. And because the screw is glued in place, you don't actually need a screwdriver. If I can get it started. There we go. So I'm going to hold this in place with again, a socket or a needle nose or some kind of pliers. And we're just getting it. So this is one of the things that requires a little finesse, because not at this point, but you want to get it a nice amount of snugness. So that's a little too tight. You want it to turn kind of easy, but have a little tension. So that's pretty good. And then you'll put it over the bobbin like this, and you don't need much tension here to start with. I mean, just enough to get a little tension there. And then I think at this point it's assembled. Put the bottom on. Oh, I see what's missing. There's these dials. These are press-on dials. And then at this point, you take one of the power supplies. Get this out of the way. You put that in there. You should see this red light go on, and then inside here, there's a green blinking light. It'll blink for 10 seconds, and it blinks once a second, so it should blink, about 10 times. And I mean, you don't have to wait for this to go off, but it'll turn off after a short while. And then you can test it. So there's also a foot pedal. I don't actually have one handy, but that is something you should test. You stick a foot pedal in the back and you turn it on, and then pushing the foot pedal should stop it. And then you can go at full speed like this, one way, and you'll notice as I turn it this way, it goes that way. That's something, if you have that reverse, then you have to flip one of those wires on the inside, but that's pretty much it. You might want to let it run a little bit just to make sure things are copacetic, but that's pretty much all it takes to assemble an electric eel wheel. Thanks for watching.